Hi, it's Brianne from Online Fabric Store. I've been obsessed with making little bags and pouches, and this one is one of my favorites. If you've never used bias tape before, this is the perfect project to learn how. And if you've already mastered it, you'll have no problem with this little pouch. All right, let's get started. Start by printing and cutting your template. If you don't want to print it from our website, it's basically a rectangle that's about just under 5 by 9 with rounded corners on 2 of the sides. We're going to use this pattern to trace onto a lightweight fusible interfacing. Cut out this piece of interfacing. Decide which of your 2 fabrics is going to be your outer fabric. I'm going to use this nice cotton poly broadcloth. I'm going to use the pink as the outer. I'm going to give my fabric a quick pass with the iron just to make sure there's no major wrinkles. Figure out which of these is the shiny side of the interfacing. Pretty easy to see in person. That's the shiny side. So it's going to go face down on my fabric right here. And then I am going to press it and hold it until the fusible interface sticks. Now you can cut out the front piece. The next few steps are optional, but I think it makes it really cute. So I'm gonna add some rickrack to this, and I think I'm gonna add a couple different rickracks actually. I'm not sure that I'll use all these. I just wanna see which one looks best with the pink fabric. So I like the yellow. I also like the orange and the metallic. I think I'll skip the pink because I'm gonna use pink for my bias tape. So I have to decide where I want each of these. I think I'm gonna do metallic, orange, yellow. And I'm going to do them towards the curved side. I just want them to be over where the fold will be. I'm gonna clip them in place. And these are all a medium size rickrack. You're welcome to use either jumbo or baby, whatever you have on hand. This is a good project to use up just those little ends of the rickrack. Just takes a little while just to make sure it's nice and straight. The extra effort now will be worth it at the end. I just like to line it up so that the little peaks and valleys of my rickrack hit in the same place on the different colors. I think that looks pretty good. We're gonna stitch this with a basic straight stitch. There's no need to backstitch at the beginning and end. Just sew right down the middle of the zigzag. It should not go off the rickrack at all. I'm gonna go pretty slow to make sure it stays straight. We sewed these before we did our other layer just so that all of our seams can be hidden. But now it's time to trim these ends. So now you can either use your pattern to trace out the next piece or just use the piece that you just made. I'm gonna use the pattern, just place them together. We're gonna put bias tape around all of our edges. Because we're doing the bias tape, we don't need to turn anything, so we're gonna keep it wrong sides together. I have 2 different sizes of double fold bias tape. I have the 1/4 inch and the 1/2 inch. And I like to use the 1/4 inch right here and the 1/2 inch around the edge. But you can use the 1/2 inch for both. Or if your hands are a lot steadier than mine, you can use the 1/4 inch for all the way around. So I'm gonna cut a length that's just a little bit longer than my width right here. You're going to take the shorter side of your bias tape. See how there's 2 different widths right there? That's the one we're going to be working with first. So we're gonna unfold it and find that outside, and we're gonna pin it right along the edge of these 2 fabrics. Sometimes I use pins, sometimes I use clips. Up to you, which is easier. We'll thread our sewing machine with the same color as this bias tape. We are gonna stitch along this stitch right here, that little fold right along the edge, all the way across. No need to backstitch. And then we're gonna fold the bias tape over the edge, and it will hide that seam we just made. I'm gonna use my clips on this one, and we're gonna sew again. So go back to the first side, the side that's just a little bit less wide, and we're gonna top stitch all the way across the bias tape. If you started on the small side like me, it's gonna be on this side. We are gonna try to stay as close as we can to this edge while still staying in the dark pink. If you're using a standard presser foot like me, what I like to do is line up the inside of my left foot just with the edge of this bias tape. That will get you a nice straight line while keeping your needle to the right of the seam. These are going to get covered by our other bias tape, so we can trim all the way to the edge. And I'm just gonna make sure this is nice and lined up everywhere. If there's anywhere where it's off a little bit, we wanna just make it easy for ourselves. So we are gonna just trim away any spot where it's not aligned perfectly. Well, now we have to do the sides, but before we do that, we need to fold this over to make our little pocket. And I think I'm gonna fold it up about 3 inches. So it's about 8.5 inches long. If I fold it up, well, 5.5, I think we'll do. I'm just gonna make a little bit of a mark in our seam allowance at the 5.5. We wanna bring it up to meet the mark and then make sure that your sides are even. And then I'm gonna press this so I make a nice fold in it. Now it's time to do our bias tape. And just like our other one, so you wanna find that shorter side, and that's the side we're gonna be working with. I'm gonna flip this over and we're gonna do everything on this side. We'll let it go over the edge just a little bit, and then I'm gonna pin it in place. And so at the beginning, you're going to be pinning 2 layers because you're getting that pocket trapped in there. When we get to the curved part, we are going to have to press that curve just to get it to go around the corner nice and smoothly. So you want to just make sure you're applying heat and pulling it so that it kind of conforms to the curve. Careful not to burn yourself while you're doing this. You want it to go nice and smooth around that corner with no bunching. Pin in place or clip in place. Bring it across the top where it's a little flatter. And then we're gonna do our next curve. Pull and press at the same time. All right, there we go. Just like our smaller one, we're gonna sew right on that fold. And go nice and slow around your curves. Try not to get any bunching. Now before we flip our bias tape over our edge, we're gonna try a newer finishing technique for the bias tape that I learned. This is where we are right now. And what we wanna do is fold over at that middle fold. So see how there's 2 folds that aren't sewn on? The one that's closer to your seam, fold over on it, and I want you to kind of clip that in place. You don't want to press it because you are going to flip it back the other direction. Put a couple clips in it to hold it in place. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew from here to here, and you can back stitch. We don't want to sew over this part of it, just this part where it's folded up on top of itself. And we want to try to stay as close as we can to this light pink fabric. So it should look something like this. The doubled part right here has stitches over it. This part does not. You're gonna snip pretty close to it. Then you're gonna turn it inside out. You might need a pointy edge, like top of a pencil or a turner, bone turner. And it makes a nice clean edge. And you wanna repeat it on the other side as well. Open it up, we see our 2 folds. This one we already sewed on, that one's not sewed, that one's not sewed. We're gonna fold over on this middle one on itself, like that, and then we're gonna clip it in place. We're gonna sew from here to here and back stitch. Trim your threads, snip nice and close to it, turn it inside out. Push that corner out nice and sharp, and then tuck this little part in. Now you have another nice neat corner. Now flip the rest of your bias tape over. Then when you get to the top part, it looks a little bit like it's gapping like this. Doesn't look great. However, if we give it a little bit of a press, it will go right away. Doesn't feel like that's gonna work, but it does. We are gonna make a seam in the darker pink as close to the light pink as we can. All right, and now I'm just gonna tuck my ends. And now it's just time to sew our snaps. Our middle is somewhere around here, making a faint pencil line, and we want it kind of up close to the top. We are going to sew this in place by hand, being careful to only get the lining fabric and not your top fabric. If you're not sure if you're getting both, you can kind of stab it a little bit and then flip it over just to make sure you didn't go through. If your fabric's kind of fluffy, you can just kind of go like this and it will leave a little dent. But if it's not and that's not working, what you can do is using a washable marker, kind of circle the snap a couple times just on the top and push down. And it will leave a little tiny mark. And that's where the center of your snap will need to be. All right, and here's your final project. I think it's super cute and I love the summer colors. I'm really excited. I think I'm gonna use it for some change. I have a lot of quarters in my car. What would you use this little snap pouch for? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching this OFS project. See you next time.